Hey to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession. This week's episode is brought to you by Imaging Services, Chiro Moguls, Mahalo Wellness, Chiro Health USA, The Goodman Factor, Chiropractic Rocks, Chiro Tax Pro, and Digital Hustle. Let's hustle.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 213 of the Chiro Hustle podcast. I am your co-host, Luke Millette. Here's your host, Jim Chester.
So today we had the opportunity of interviewing Dr. Seth Barr, and if you want to understand the difference between branding and direct response, stay tuned. Welcome to another episode of the Chiro Hustle podcast. This is episode 213. And it's quite an honor to have Seth Barr on today, coming from the beautiful state of Wisconsin. And we are coming in from Grand Junction in Colorado here. Man, it's just so amazing to have you on for episode 213. I know it's been in the works for a while. And you have such a great story and such good energy. And I just like you as a person. So as a chiropractor, I can only imagine what it's like to come and be under your care. And I know you've been out in the game now for 8 years, and you graduated from the Fountainhead and the gym on the Mississippi called Palmer. And yeah, man, let's just jump right into this one. And before we do that, I just want to welcome you to our show and thank you for being our guest today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. It's an honor.
Yeah, man, I'm fired up. It's not just the coffee. It's the connection. And, you know, one of the things that we got a chance to do over the past, we said like 12 to 18 months was be in this amazing inner circle together, this high-end networking group that we both joined. And yeah, we just got to know each other. And we're like, dude, it was like, what was it? Victoria? Was it Toronto? It was both. Yeah. And yeah, we're all itching to get back together again.
True that. It's been far too long.
So in our typical Chiro Hustle fashion, we like to ask the chiropractor to share their story. And I don't know yours. So how did you get into chiropractic? And maybe you could share your story with our audience.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll make it brief. So I initially went to school for engineering. Growing up, I grew up on a farm and I always loved tinkering with things. And so I was like, engineering's right up my alley. So I went into school for engineering, UW Platteville, and a year and a half into engineering school, I kind of said, you know what? I don't think this is really for me. I love the aspect of engineering, a ton of respect for engineers. I absolutely love what they do. It was missing that personal connection for me though. And I didn't really know that growing up in the country and growing up on a farm. I didn't really know that I really craved that social aspect, that connection. And so I didn't see myself sitting in a cubicle. You know, not all engineers sit in cubicles, but you kind of get my gist. It just seemed that engineering just wasn't for me. I needed more interaction with people. And that's when my cousin, his wife at the time, was a chiropractor. She still is. And she kind of told me about chiropractic. And I said, well, that sounds cool. And she had told me the superficial reasons for it, right? She told me some deeper things about it and the passion that she had for it. She's very passionate about it. But what I picked up on was the superficial reasons, you know, you can be a doctor and own your own practice and make your own hours and, you know, all this and the good life. And unfortunately at the time, that's why I got into chiropractic. And I'm not ashamed to say that, but that's why I got into it. But what happened is very interesting. At Palmer, I just got into student clinic. And my very first patient came to me, and his name was Ken. And now, if you picture a guy who's overweight, he had a shaved head, stubble on his head, blonde hair, thick glasses, really quiet, soft-spoken guy. And he was my first patient. And I was going through his file, and this thing was like an encyclopedia. There was so much to his file. And going through it, it was pretty evident that he was not in a good place. He was one of those unfortunate people that got hooked on opioids, made his condition worse. He was in more pain, lost his job, stressed at home, wife, kids, the whole thing, on brink of divorce. And he was not in a good place at all. And I remember him looking at me and saying, can you help me? And he was my first patient. And I just said, I look at him and I said, Ken, you're my first patient. And we both kind of chuckled and laughed about it. But I said, you know what? I know my stuff. and I'm going to do everything that I can in my power to help you. And we did. We started changing things with him. I took extra time. We talked about all sorts of different things, of course, the amazing adjustments, and he never experienced anything like that. And he's like, wow, I had no hope. I had no clue that chiropractic could do this. And it was really cool because as a student for my first patient, I got to see this guy's life literally turn around right before my eyes. He went from depressed, sad, stressed, to this completely different individual who healed himself, not only the musculoskeletal, but his whole life. Things were better at home with his kids. He got a job, stress and finances weren't there anymore, a better relationship with his wife. And it was so cool to see. And so what ended up happening was, year goes down the road. I don't see him. He's released from clinic, and I graduate. And Palmer Gymnasium, Lyceum Hall, there's confetti all over the place and all this stuff. And I'm standing there, and I hear my name, and I turn around, and it's Ken. I hadn't seen him in a year, and he shows up, and I'm like, dude, what are you doing here? And he goes, well, I found out when you graduated, and I wanted to come and see you graduate. And I'm like, I had tears in my eyes, and I look at him, and he's starting to cry, and I'm like, hey, what's up? And he goes, well, I also want to tell you something. I'm like, yeah, what's up? And he goes, well, that Friday when I saw you, and at this point he's really crying. He goes, I was going to kill myself on Saturday. And I'm like, I didn't lost the words. And he pulls out this crinkled up piece of paper, and he goes, here's a suicide note that I had written. And he goes, if it wasn't for you and chiropractic and everything, I probably wouldn't be here. And I took that note, and I looked at it, and I ripped it up, and I said, you won't be needing this anymore. And it was at that point that everything changed for me. My reason why I initially got into chiropractic switched, and I realized that I am on the right path, that this is my mission, to help people, to cure people, to save people. And that's my story, and that's how I got started in this amazing profession.
Damn, dude, you almost made me cry. That's like a real, when we think about it, when I went out and did 600 screen events, as you know, and, I'm like, if I don't tell you the truth about chiropractic, someone will get you on drugs or surgery. And it's my, job to be an apologist for this profession and tell people the truth. And as I learned that type of communication tactic, I was never the person putting hands on people. So I never got a chance to see what the outcomes really were, except for if I went out there and worked my tail off and I could help people grow their practices, I knew I was sending people to a good place. So that was always a beautiful thing. So hearing your story, I always heard these cliche things. Yeah, it'll make you a better dad. It'll make you a better worker. It'll make you a better husband. It'll make you, blah, blah, blah. And it's true. And that's why when we do these interviews, nothing ever seems it's never old to me, having these conversations, because there's always a miracle in the message. And that's really what you delivered just there, is you gave a miracle in the message, and your why became bigger than your reason. And your reason was because of the career, and the engineer mind told you, yeah, this all makes sense. But the why is giving people their value back and their life back. And that's what became so cliche to me early on when I was working in the practice. I was like, well, we make better moms and better kids and healthier families. And I'd always say a family attraction together stays together. And we'd have have a chiropractic day, high five, and all these little things we'd tell people. But when you see guys like Ken, that's the real truth of chiropractic.
Spot on, man. The why is the biggest thing. And, whether you're working on their bodies or you're working on their minds, they're both equally as important. And, being in practice for 8.5 years now, I can tell you that you also have to work on people's minds, because, I think the famous saying goes is, if you had the option, would you be able to teach somebody the life-saving power of chiropractic, or would you just give them an adjustment? And there's a debate between the two, but they have to get the big idea as well. And working on their minds is equally as important in that.
So can you maybe tell us some things that you're doing in your businesses that are not typical of other chiropractors?
Ooh, not typical. That's a good question. I don't know what's typical. I guess I do my thing that we do in here. And we do what works, and I tweak it and move on. Do you mean in practice, or do you mean like in the business? Because those are two very different. In the business, yeah. So one thing that I would say that we do in here is we run a really tight ship. And we schedule things. We have team meetings, huddles before and after. One thing that I think's missed a lot is wins. What are the wins? Me and my employee just had a meeting the other day, and we said, man, we're kind of drifting a little bit. We're drifting a little bit away from the wins. And I think every practice does this. You get a little complacent. You gotta get back on track and stay on the lane, because life will cause you to drift. If you're not moving forward, if you're not on a mission, you're drifting. You think you're still moving forward, but you're really not. You end up drifting just a little bit off course. And as we know, a ship that goes 1 degree off course 100 feet down the line isn't anything, but you had 100 miles down the line, now you're way off course. And so we like to do wins every day. After every shift, what did we do well? What can we improve on? And then we end with another, what did we do well? What went great for the day? And just getting back to that is so powerful, and it's free. It's easy. It gets your mind focused on doing the right thing. So that's one thing that we do in the practice that I recommend everybody does. You guys are in marketing. So from a marketing perspective, we're doing, it's crazy. I started a direct mail company with helping docs do direct mail. And I've been doing direct mail for 6 years now, 7 years in my practice. And I'm shocked that there's so many docs that I've never even considered doing direct mail. And it blows my mind because it's such a gold mine, especially right now with COVID and everything. So, I would say those are two things that we do. One for the marketing perspective, and then one thing that we do in-house here that is simple but powerful.
I think, when we're discussing like team, and whether it's a team of one or a team of two or a team of 1,000, I think, as we were talking off camera about like working out our bodies and practicing healthy habits, and, you're not just adjusting the spine, you're adjusting the mind. Yeah. And you think about adjusting the mind, there's the gratitude muscle, and you should be acknowledging people that you care about as unconditional as possible. And it's not like, hey, 3 times a week, I'm going to tell people that I think they're great and awesome and I love them. No, I think that people should lead with that first. Mm-hmm. And when you get a chance to interact with people, you should always lead with gratitude. You should always lead with highlighting something that's encouraging about them, highlight something that's connection with you and them. Like when you first jumped on with me, I was just like, acknowledging you. And I was telling you like, hey man, thank you for doing what you do. Thank you for being our guest. And, I see you. And I think that if you did that with the people you worked with, because they say the people you work with, you see more than your own family. So if you learn to have that acknowledgement muscle, you learn to lift people up, and those people feel more grateful. And when you have gratitude amongst the tribe of people, that's when things really get done. And it doesn't all rest on the shoulders of the leader to say, I can do it better than you. No, you lead by example, but you also acknowledge people for being great team players.
Yeah. And that's so spot on, man. It's gratitude. And to expand on what you're saying even farther, gratitude, in order to give gratitude, you have to be really grateful within yourself too. In order to be, you're not going to be a stick in the mud and go and tell everybody, the things that you appreciate about them. So you have to appreciate where you're at in your life as well. And you actually have to appreciate yourself to be able to give that out. So, part of my morning routine is I do priming. I've taken this from Tony Robbins' playbook, and every morning I do 15 minutes of priming where you literally focus on cleansing your body with energy and light and, from the above down, inside out. And then, what I do is I focus on gratitude. What am I thankful for? 3 things that really fill me up, moments, and I stack those, more moments and thoughts and energy, and I blast that out to everybody around me, friends, family, all my patients. Every morning, my patients get a blessing from me, and how grateful I am from them, and they don't even know it, right? But that sets you up. And I just read the book by Jocko Willis, Extreme Ownership, the 2 Navy SEALs who wrote that book. I'm sorry, I apologize, I forgot their name. That's not like me, but he talks about winning the morning. That alarm goes off. You lay in bed. You sit there and lay in bed. You hit the snooze. You just lost. You lost the morning. You have to have the discipline and the fortitude to get out of bed and force yourself to do those things. And that's how you wake up the body. You have to do it every single day and wake up the body and get grateful and get in that good state. If you don't, you lost the morning, and you probably lost the day too, because you're just a little bit off. You're a little bit less than what you could have been. And people feel that.
Absolutely. It's Jocko Willink, I believe.
Thank you. Yep, that's his name.
And when people follow a certain routine, just like making your bed, it changes the whole aspect of the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And just making your bed every day will change like the whole behavior of how you show up. And I think that that's something that, I learned, like, I think it was 10 years ago. I watched this lieutenant in the military give this like presentation, and he's like, one thing I'll tell all of you is to just start making your bed every day and you'll see the shift in you. Yeah. And I think that's the same for showing up on purpose.
Absolutely.
So tell us some of your mantras that you live your life by, and maybe some favorite motivational quotes, if you have any.
Yeah. Well, I think we just talked about one. Another one that I have, and a patient of mine gave me this card here, and I always hold on to it. And it has one of my favorite quotes, and it's by Teddy Roosevelt. And he said, nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And, there's, especially in our world, and Jim, this feeds right into what you were saying, just appreciation and caring for people. In our world, there's so much noise. Okay. Everybody has something to say and an opinion and all this, right? But nobody's listening until they know that you actually care, until they know the place that you're coming from. Is it good? And I think oftentimes we can get lost in that. We can get lost in the numbers. We can get lost in the politics and siding and all this other stuff that causes us to drift, when really it just gets back to the simple thing of care for the person in front of you. Just care for them. Have their best interest at heart, and everything else is going to take care of itself, because they feel, as chiropractors, our patients feel you. They feel the energy that you're coming from. Is it good? Is it pure? Is it there? And if it isn't, they aren't going to listen to you, because they feel that you're in it for yourself for the wrong reasons. But as soon as they know that you care and they can feel that you care, then it's a different game, different ball game.
Absolutely. I can't tell you, Dr. Seth, how many days I wake up and I have 10 instant messages from Facebook Messenger. I have 5 text messages. I have 20 emails. And I'm like, how do people get this much like energy to like send me so much stuff between like the time I'm sleeping in 8 hours? And, I wake up to that and I'm like, well, no, I'm navigating like a whole nother realm of acknowledgement. As you said, static and noise. And how do we cut through that and find time to ourselves again? And I think our vocabularies are so well-rounded these days, and our knowledge base is so vast these days, that I think that we forget one simple word, and that's acknowledgement. Yeah. Acknowledgement to others and acknowledgement to ourselves. And it's such a simple word, but it's such a misused word, and it's such a underused word. And I think that when we acknowledge ourselves with routines, like you said, in the morning, then you get a chance to cut through that static and noise. And I know that people are like, yeah, you just got to time block things. It's like going to the gym, like make it a time block, and you go to adjust in these hours and make it a time block. But acknowledgement is one of those things that really is a chiropractic tool. And when you acknowledge your present time consciousness with your adjustment, you're acknowledging the ability to shift someone's life like Ken's.
Yeah. And that's spot on, man. And you hit the word in there, present time consciousness. And, that could probably even just be focused down to presence. Are you present in the moment? And you can do something. You could say an acknowledgement to somebody, but maybe you don't feel it. And that's the key is, are you really feeling what you're saying? Are you 100% immersed in the present moment that you feel it and you mean it? Because there's a difference. There's a difference between adjusting somebody's spine and being 100% present with them and feeling it. And I know every single chiropractor out there knows the difference, because you can tell an adjustment that you were 100% present and you would deliver it, and it's the perfect timing. It's the perfect setup. Everything's perfect. And the patient just says, wow. That's all they say when they're done. They just go, wow. And you're just like, yes, I was 100% present. And you know the difference. Everybody knows the difference. And so, I think the challenge is to create more of those moments, whether it's an adjustment or just through going throughout your day. Are you being present? Are you being present when you're walking, when you're going shopping, when you're driving, when you're with other people that you care about? Are you being present? Are you actually seeing them? Because when you're around people, you see them so much that you don't see them anymore. You see your office so much that you don't see it anymore, And so you have to get into that feeling of presence and actually feel that moment.
So how do you think the world would change if everyone did getting those moments that you're talking about? If every person started getting adjusted regularly?
Man, I mean, could you even imagine how the world would change? I mean, it would be unrecognizable. And don't get me wrong. I mean, even though we're going through some shit, the world's still pretty good. I think it's probably the best time we've ever had in history right now. We're living in it. And we don't even know it. We don't even know it. And that's the thing is, we have to appreciate it. I think people would really start to value themselves more. And when they value themselves more, they value other people more. I'm a big believer in that, I look at it. I just read a stat the other day in this article that 86 or 87%, it's probably up to 90% now because this was in 2016. So we'll say 90%. 90% of people are metabolically unhealthy. They're metabolically unable to adapt. And I'm just thinking, that's Americans. And I'm like, man, 90% of people, 40% obesity rate, 70% of people being overweight, all that compounds into sickness and disease and not being grateful, and just the system that is taking life. It's taking vital energy and life from people. And I'm just like, how much better would the world be? Or we'll just start with the United States. Would the United States be if people could live a life truly healthy, truly well? I believe that health is our number one thing in people's, maybe behind spirituality, but the number one thing in this physical earth that is like the most important thing, because it sets up the basis for everything else. Everything else depends on what your health is. Okay. Mm-hmm. If you're not healthy, it doesn't matter how much money you have. If you're not healthy, you're not going to have the relationships, so you're not going to be able to be there for the relationships. If you're not healthy, your mind's not right. You're a little bit more angry, agitated. If you're not healthy, everything just is a little bit less. And so I'm a big believer in being selfish towards your health, because that sets up your ability to do everything else.
When people realize that they would give away their pocket full of gold for one more breath, that's when the game changes.
Yeah.
And when people value their health more than they value the mainstream marketing, that's when marketing doesn't matter.
Yep.
And the marketing message that people get is so skewed towards dysfunction and disease. And that's why 90% of the people aren't metabolically healthy. So when we consider the chiropractic lifestyle and what the adjustment does, the adjustment's like the gateway into the future. And when people understand that that's the marketing message that chiropractic needs, it's a human performance game.
Yeah.
It's a lifestyle modification game. It's an adaptability of the future game. And when you tell me that 40% of people are somewhat obese, that means that we have 40% of the population that has a severe chronic like comorbidity that's going on. That's why that things that are happening in our current atmosphere are such a concern, is because it's not the seed, it's the soil. And I had this conversation yesterday. So many people come in to a chiropractor and they're like, it's just here. And you're like, no, it's just up here. And they're like, no, it's just here. And you're like, no, it's just up here. And it's just what's going in here. It's what's going in here. It's what's going in here. And when we can start clearing up like the internal environment, being selfish to what people regulate themselves to actually have access to, then they realize that the adjustment's the gateway. And when people understand that, that gives them the ability to have this quality of life, which includes the eating right, the thinking right, the moving right, but the adjustment's primary. And that's why I believe what you do and all chiropractors are doing is they're setting people up for a better future rather than just the symptomatic approach. The symptoms sell, but the lifestyle is what heals. And when you get that person to actually understand that, that's when you get a chance to have a transcending like approach to like humanity. And that's really BJ Palmer's utopia. And I could say that like 1,000 times over and over. But if everybody's getting adjusted, yeah, man, the marketing message would change. The people, the way they showed up to your office would change. You would have a, chiropractic dream, like people lined up around your office waiting to come in for their adjustments and taking numbers like they're at like a meat counter. Like,
yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're so spot on, dude. And it's interesting because as the world and health has shifted a bit, chiropractors, unfortunately, have had to shift their message. We've had to focus on selling pain and disease and that, and getting them out of that. And, while I don't like it, it's still okay because a mentor of mine told me to sell them on what they want and educate them on what they could have. And, not everybody's gonna subscribe to that, and that's fine. You can't save everybody, but at the same time, I think that's really important that we also educate people on what they could have, the lifestyle, the chiropractic DD's vision, BJ's vision, and show them how great life can be. And that also comes from us leading that life too. I'm a big believer in don't take advice from a doctor who doesn't have the health status that you want. I'm a big believer in that because he's not living the lifestyle,
Mm-hmm.
So, And to that point, for all the docs out there that are listening to this and they're saying, okay, man, that's awesome. They're fired up and you're listening to Jim drop knowledge bombs. It starts with one thing. Okay. My little nugget of gold, my cheat system, if you will, if I want to incorporate a habit, I pick one habit. Okay. One thing, pick one thing that you think is going to be the most influential thing in your life. Okay. Whether it's stopping drinking, or whether it's cutting out crappy foods, or whether it's walking every single day, or exercising every single day, or meditating every single day, or doing the priming and the gratitude exercises that we talked about, or making sure that you get up at a specific time every single day and get your butt out of bed. Whatever it is for you, choose, and then make that one thing your mission, okay? I set a timer on my phone. It's a tracking app. You can download any of them. I downloaded one. And for every habit that I want to do, I say I'm going to do this every single day. And if I skip, I have to reset that timer, right? So maybe I get to 30 days. If I miss a day, that timer is going back to 0. Every single clock or every single time that I've started, I've not had to reset because the pain of having to reset that timer is like way too painful. So it keeps you accountable and you can see the progress that you've made. You can see the things, you can see yourself building. It's like, wow, 30 days. I did 30 days with no sugar. Or I did 60 days with no sugar. And once your mind can see that, you start to continue down that path. Tim Ferriss says, what gets measured, or what's he say? What gets measured, what gets tracked gets measured. Or no, what gets measured gets tracked, and what gets tracked gets results. Okay. And so you need to have that yardstick to actually see, to track it, and then to actually get the results. If you don't know where you're at and where you're starting from, and you can't see the progress, it's very hard to continue to do that thing. So I'm a big believer in writing stuff down or tracking stuff, tracking workouts, tracking everything, and seeing that progress. And, Jim, on your health kick, I'm sure that you're probably doing the same thing right now. And tracking and measuring is really important.
You made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession. This week's episode is brought to you by Imaging Services, Chiro Moguls, Mahalo Wellness, Chiro Health USA, The Goodman Factor, Chiropractic Rocks, Chiro Tax Pro, and Digital Hustle. Let's hustle. Well, accountability, personal accountability, self-responsibility, and acknowledgement are so important to what we're doing. And you get these synapses, these triggers in our heads. When somebody challenged me to go 72 hours and to try to do something wrong each day. You know how freaking awfully challenging that was for me to try to figure out how to do something wrong?
Yeah.
Because we're engineered, back to your early roots, I'm engineered to do everything right.
Mm-hmm.
So when you press yourself to do something wrong, you're like, what the hell can I do wrong?
Mm-hmm.
Then you realize how much you do right.
Yeah.
And that's when you have this epiphany moment and you're like, wow, I am way better off than what I actually give myself credit for. And John DeMartini taught me this. You have to give yourself permission to be great. Yeah. And no one's going to wake up in the morning and say, hey, Seth, I'm going to give you a better day today. That's all on you, man. So the way that you wake up is the way you show up. And I really believe that what you're saying, it is so valuable to people to understand that we call it habit traction within our Men of Iron group. And if you have good habits, it builds traction. And then the last thing you ever want to do is drop your self accountability and your self responsibility. And I think that those are things that will make a person really challenge their own ethical stance for themselves and say, no, I'm not going to do anything wrong today. I'm going to attempt to do everything right. I have a checklist of these damn things.
Yeah. Right.
So where do you see chiropractic going in the next 20 years or so?
So I thought about this, and it's interesting. I was just thinking about the other day. I really think that there is a movement in healthcare, and it's a battle. It's a war. It is a flat out war in healthcare to strip the power away from these evil pharmaceutical companies and give it back to the doctors, give it back to, whether it's chiropractic, any doctor, and give them the power back to truly make the decisions on healthcare from their own knowledge and practice, right? From their own experience. And modern medicine has been stripped of everything. And so what I think is going to happen is chiropractors are in the perfect position to lead this charge. And we've been doing it. It's already happening. And the shift is happening. More and more people are getting on board. More and more people are saying, let's try chiropractic. More and more people are getting into a healthy lifestyle. And that is what chiropractors, promote. And I think medicine will shift from the pharmaceutical model. And I actually think it'll be to a point where AI will take over, and done properly, it will recognize, you'll plug in symptoms and lab tests and results, and you'll have the ability to prick your arm with blood and send it into a lab, and they'll give you more metrics than you ever would have hoped, and it'll plug into what vitamins and foods and everything you should be taking and eating to truly get well. And I think that might be a little bit more than 20 years, but I really think that will be the future. But one thing won't change, and that is the chiropractic adjustment. That has been tested since 1895, and it is, for the most part, it hasn't changed. I mean, it's adapted and grown, but it's still a one-on-one interpersonal encounter, and you need chiropractors. You need people, because that's the one thing that I don't think technology will be able to change. They won't be able to incorporate any AI or anything into the chiropractic adjustment. So I think that's going to be the wheelhouse. And as people go more digital, they're going to crave that type of interaction with your doctor and with the chiropractor. They need that. And so I think chiropractors are positioned perfectly. I think the profession will continue to grow and we'll continue to maintain what we've been doing and do it even better.
So maybe you could also tell us, who are some of your heroes, chiropractic or otherwise? Who are some people you look up to?
Yeah, well, being from Wisconsin, I have to say Gonstead. I think Clarence Gonstead was such a visionary. I mean, built like the largest chiropractic office in the world. I think it was the largest one in the world. If not, it was certainly the largest one in the world at that time. And I mean, he had a waiting room of like 100 people. His waiting room held. It was just phenomenal, never to be replicated again. And I think what he did for the profession was just incredible. And he's, in Mount Horeb, Wisconsin, so an hour away from me. And it's crazy. I didn't even know that. I didn't even know that until I went to chiropractic school. And here you had like the greatest chiropractic office in the world at one time, right an hour from me, and I didn't even know it. So, I think what he's done has just been incredible, and a lot of people follow his technique and everything. And there's a lot of other greats that I certainly could name, but being from Wisconsin, and I don't practice strict Gonstead, but I use his method to. I know Gonstead people would cringe at that, but I think his adjusting and how he adjusts and what he gave to the profession in terms of some of his techniques was just really incredible.
So what's some marketing that maybe you've tried in the past that didn't work?
Marketing that didn't work. Boy. At one time I did a value pack thing. Never do that again. That's a waste. Stuff that I did back in the day, I would say that, or any like anything like that where your stuff's going to get lost in the ether, right? Anything like that where it's going to get lost. And you guys might be like, well, wait, you're the direct mail guy. How can you be trashing on like value pack or something like that? There's a big difference. There's a big difference between having a carefully constructed ad and a postcard and a mailer with your name and picture and testimonial on it that you can target and distribute to a specific set of homes versus a thing that's going to get lost in like the yellow pages or something like that. That's old school. Marketing too, that I don't think really works is if you're just paying to brand. No chiropractic office should really be doing like brand recognition unless it's you want to help out the local chamber, you want to donate to, kids youth baseball thing or something, but don't expect any like new patients from that. I don't even think a lot of people realize in marketing, there's really two different types of marketing. There's branding and then there's direct response marketing. I don't even think people know that, especially young docs getting out of school. They have no idea. I didn't know that. I thought, oh, you just put your logo up, but there's really, when you look at good marketing, it's very direct response. It's targeted to get a specific response from a prospective client, and it's targeted to get them to act on that and a call to action to come in and see you. And that's how you drive more new patients. The branding of that is the side effect, is the side product of that. Okay. And, no doc or small office should be like spending money on to just put their logo up somewhere, because you ain't going to see a return from that. We don't have the budgets to be able to throw those kind of dollars and cents to behind like a big marketing branding campaign. And I want to emphasize branding. Marketing, direct marketing is very different. And with that, like I said, things I have done that have worked, direct mail, that's what grew my practice. I started doing direct mail 6 years ago. My first mailer, I just about quit because I didn't get a patient from it, but I realized what I was doing. And that's when I learned the difference between branding and direct mail response. I signed a postcard and I was branding. It didn't have what it needed to have on it: a testimonial, a headline, a call to action, a deadline. It didn't have any of those on it. And I sat there, I'm like, wow, that was a waste of money. But I didn't quit. I figured out what I did wrong. And then I started hitting success and kept doing it. And I've sent out hundreds of campaigns just in my office, then let alone like the other docs I've helped do it. We're up in the thousands of campaigns that we've sent out direct mail and probably hundreds of thousands of postcards. It's not, if not close to 1 million, when you factor in all the different ones that I've helped and, had been influential in. It's funny, just the other day, for those of you that aren't doing direct mail or print, this is the power of this. My employee the other day came into my office and hey, we got a new patient, and we always celebrate getting new patients. And she came, I was like, okay, where'd this one come from? And she goes, well, it was a direct mail, but she said the expiration date was from 2018. So I thought about that and I said, wow, a postcard that expired in 2018, this prospective patient held onto. They saw enough value, but they just weren't ready to buy yet in that postcard. And 2 years later, I'm reaping the rewards from a $1,500 or $2,000 direct mail campaign that I sent out 2 years ago. And we're still yielding results from that. And that's one cool thing about direct mail is that it stays with you. I'm sure everybody has pieces of mail that's like, oh, sat on the counter for weeks or months and it's still sitting there, and they continue to see it. They continue to see it again and again and again. And they have to go through it 2, 3, 4, 5 times. And every time they do it, hits it, and so that's all free. You pay for the postage, you pay for the market spend once, the ad spend, and it keeps repeating. People will save that. Why? There's a lot that goes into it, the good marketing, the pieces, but also touch. They have to touch it. It's a good high quality postcard. They have to touch it. That burns into their nervous system. It makes an impression. A little bit different than, a screen and scrolling through a screen, but actually burns into their nervous system when they touch. And as chiropractors, we know that. We understand how powerful touch is.
Yeah, man. I love what you say about branding versus response. And, Luke and I, we've been doing Hustle now for over 3 years now. And we've done over 800 interviews in some facet for the chiropractic profession.
Yeah.
And a lot of that was to build goodwill campaign and to build positioning and to build the largest chiropractic podcast in the world. And it's kind of like the Gonstead of podcasting. Like you have to have tons of goodwill in order to get the brand recognition. And a lot of upstart businesses don't have that foresight to say 3 years from now, we're going to be this. And I really believe that what you're saying is now we're, like I said before we started this interview, we're working on a nurturing campaign. We're working on how can we nurture what we've been able to accomplish and now get touches back and forth with the people that we've actually got a direct response from who said, yes, I'll do an interview with you guys. And that's when you start to see how you can actually build momentum with the brand and with connection and with growth. And sometimes it takes 3 years for you to have that much influence in order for you to say, okay, now we've done the heavy lifting. Now let's figure out how to turn this into the roads of success for the future. And that's what really, when you do something like what we do with the Goodwill campaign and brand recognition, the direct response now is going to be bananas because we've done all of the heavy lifting and hard work in order to get us here. Now we get A+ guests like you to come on and talk about what makes you unique, what makes you awesome, and how you're making an impact in the world. And people pay attention to this stuff. And then we get a chance to build that relationship further by sharing your message and spotlighting you. And I love what you said about, in 2 years from now. Well, it's been 3 years for us. So there's people that we interviewed 3 years ago that we're touching back with now that we're saying, hey, you still have that interview you did with us. You might not, but here's an asset folder. Please share it now. Mm-hmm. And I think that when you understand that the brand and the connection is so valuable, and whether it's burning into their nervous system with something tactical that they can touch, or whether it's the connection that you built with somebody because you were front and center with them, that's really the beautiful thing about brand and marketing and direct response, what you're talking about, because you never know how far reaching something you do today will have the impact on millions of lives tomorrow. And that's why I know that if BJ was still around, he would be our #1 damn supporter of Chiro Hustle. He would probably buy our show.
Dude, he probably would. He owned a radio station at one point. So he certainly would. I have no doubt about that at all. You guys might have to grow out your hair and you might have to grow out your beard a bit. But, hey, man, I think it'd be a good trade-off.
We'd set up our operations in Gonstead's office.
That's perfect, man. Yeah, that's great. And to that point, when you have, when you do have a brand, when you've done the goodwill and you have that there, it accentuates everything. We in my office, we're big on getting reviews, because that's our social proof. That's our branding. People will go online once they get my postcard in the mail. They're like, oh, this is really good. I want to learn more. And they'll go online. And every time I'm looking at Google Analytics, we send out postcards. My Google Analytics for my website goes through the roof. It goes through the roof of people Googling me and searching me and looking at my website and reading the reviews. So when they go on there and they do that and there's good social proof and awareness and it's congruent, it's a no-brainer for them to call and take advantage of it. There isn't anybody else that they're going to go see. It's like, it's locked, it's like, this is the place to be. And that's what you want to be as a chiropractor. You want to be the place to go.
So what is a piece of advice that you would give to a struggling student, and should they pick their school based on geography?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I got to say, for students out there listening to this, kudos to you for listening to a voice and a leader in the profession. You're getting good knowledge right from the fountainhead. And that's awesome. Jim and what you guys do is incredible and your philosophy is on point. So keep listening to the greats like this podcast. Number two, you're going to get different messages at different schools. And when I was a student or looking into chiropractic schools, I had no clue what the difference was, but be very clear. You're going to get different message and you probably will be a different chiropractor depending on what school you choose. I am a big believer in subluxation, and I'm a big believer in the core fundamental chiropractic principles. And I think that choosing a school that believes in those is the utmost importance, because as humans, and we talked about drifting, I think schools can drift just as well. And I think a lot of chiropractic colleges out there have drifted, and I think they are providing a message that isn't necessarily as congruent with what I think the profession should be. And so to that extent, I think, choosing a school such as, Palmer or Life or Sherman are going to be great. And there's other good ones out there too. But at the same time, that's where my stance is on it. Now, if geography is a big deal for you, then yeah, you got to do what fits. But I think, choosing one of those schools, and of course I'm a Palmer grad, so I got to give a shout out to Palmer, and just do the research, talk to other docs, talk to docs who've been to other different schools and see the pros and cons and ask them about other different schools, and then get involved in school. Once you're in school, get involved in clubs. Okay, that's where you really learn how to adjust. That's where you really learn the skills and the techniques. Get involved in extra things outside of just class. Go to the clubs. Go have adjusting parties with your friends. Learn how to really truly adjust and learn the skills, because that's what will separate you as well. And believe me, patients can tell. They know they know a chiropractor who knows how to adjust and one who doesn't. And be the best adjuster that you can. We're talking a lot about marketing and other stuff, but a big part of marketing is the service itself. Okay. You have to have a good service and a good, in this case, I'll say product, but it's really a service. Yeah, that has to be good. And that will do a lot of your marketing for you if that's good. So make sure that's good.
We call that delivering the goods.
Yes, we do. We're throwing the thunder, as I like to say.
And that's, I appreciate the acknowledgement for the fundamentals that we possess with our philosophy. And most people that send me emails say Dr. Jim, and they all of a sudden, right off the jump, think that I'm a doctor. And neither Luke or I are chiropractors or doctors. We just understand the game so well because this is chiropractic news. And what we produce is the real deal. And we do deliver the goods. So thank you for the acknowledgement on that. And, to be so philosophically sound as like an advocate, I believe that we need more people out there growing the chiropractic profession and brand. And when I refer back to DeMartini, one of the things he like tattooed onto my brain was chiropractic needs more media leverage. So when I asked him to be in our first movie, Chiropractic the documentary, he's like, of course, I'll be at the Ritz-Carlton at 2 p.m. next Tuesday, and this is my room number. And I showed up to his room. He gave me 2 hours of his time, and I interviewed him for our first movie because I was the last person in that room. And I said, hey, Dr. DeMartini, my name is Jim Chester. I'm a very enthusiastic individual. I'm making a film on chiropractic. I'd like to have you in it. He goes, wow. And I go, yeah, you said something that really inspired me. And you're all about inspiration of people. And what you said was that chiropractic needed more media leverage. Well, I'm making a film on chiropractic, and I want you to be a part of it. So what happened is when Luke and I finished this whole movie, we sent it to Dr. DeMartini, and he basically was our executive producer. He watched the whole thing. He sent us back like this much notes on what we needed to do to make it better. And we took his message and Jeannie Ohms to heart. And we harvested that knowledge based on that relationship. But I think when we show up enthusiastic and we believe in this message of chiropractic, the world is like really hungry for something other than what they see on between the shows that they watch on the thing that hangs on their wall. Yeah. And when we think about the messaging of what we're doing, we just want everybody to share this. We want you to share this when it's done with your practice members, because they'll know you better and they'll know why you exist. They know where your roots come from and what makes your genius so important to the world. And I really believe that if we just keep on, like they say back in old DE days, is tell the story, tell the story, tell the story. We get this story to amplify now, and we have different channels of command that we can all plug into. And you might listen to Spotify, somebody else might listen to iTunes, somebody else might watch YouTube, somebody else might watch Facebook Lives. But when we matriculate this information, we get this like thunderclap of like knowledge out there of what chiropractic really is. And that's really, when we think about episode 213, we're not going to stop. And we're just going to keep on harvesting this knowledge and sharing this knowledge and getting more people inspired. And I could go around in circles all day long and talk about why chiropractic is so vital to the transformation in the existence of humanity. But that's why paying attention to one practitioner like yourself today matters so much to us, because we get a chance to shine a spotlight on you and amplify your story and say, hey, if you guys want to hit more people in your community, check out Dr. Seth. Check out his direct mailing program. And he's a trusted resource for you guys to be able to get from the place where you think about branding to marketing. And it's so simple, but it's so confusing when people don't understand that simple thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, I just appreciate you. I know we're coming up on the edge of our time together today, but I did want to, close out by talking a little bit more about you. Maybe you could share with people what your hobbies are, what you listen to, and what you read.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, I love reading other people's work that is like self-improvement type of stuff, and just always filling my mind with different things. And, it's interesting because, and you're in the self-improvement world as well. And I think, 1% every single day, just get a little bit better every single day. And like I said, I just read just literally last night, I finished the book, Extreme Ownership. And that's game changer. If anybody out there needs a book to read, I highly recommend that. It will be a game changer for you and your practice and how you lead and how you show up. Hobbies, 2 hobbies right now, golf and hunting. And we're in the shift. We're in the shift in Wisconsin here. So both are still in the back of my pickup truck. I have my clubs right next to my bow and arrow, but I think I'll be removing the clubs maybe in a month or two and solely focus on the hunting. But those are my hobbies, the practice, hunting, golfing, and just staying healthy overall. I love this time of year. It's my favorite season, the fall. As the weather starts to shift, the leaves are starting to turn and going to fall here soon. And I love being out in the woods this time of the year. It's my favorite time to just be outside and sit in nature and be present and just be grateful for the surroundings. And it's funny, I feel so much more connected this time of the year because I force myself to get outside and hunt. I love doing it, but I should say, force myself to wake up at 5:30 in the morning to do that. So, and it's funny because I track my sleep. I have the Oura Ring. A lot of docs out there probably know, but it's funny how every year, this time of year, my sleep goes through the roof. My quality of sleep, my heart rate variability skyrockets, my deep sleep, my heart rate lowers. And I think it's just because, you're so connected in nature. You get connected with the earth and nature and that energy, and it really is incredible. So, I absolutely love this time of year.
So where can people go if they want to try out your direct mailing service or just to learn more about you?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can go to directmail4chiro.com. Either direct mail the number 4 or FOR will both take you there. And there's also a contact, a link on there to schedule a 15-minute appointment. So if you have any questions on it, there's a link on there to schedule. You can set up a call with me directly. We'd be happy to walk you through your strategy if we think direct mail is going to be a right fit for you, and how you might be able to implement it in your practice and see more new patients and get more people coming through your door. So that's www.directmail4chiro.com. And also there's a link on there. I'd be happy to set up a time with you to chat more.
All right. That pretty much brings us to the end of this episode. Dr. Seth, I want to thank you for being our guest today.
Thank you guys. Really appreciate it, and really appreciate all the stuff that you guys are doing for the profession. Keep it up.
Well, thank you so much, brother. And I would recommend all of you, if you made it to this point in the interview, to take advantage of that 15-minute consult with Dr. Seth, because I've done it myself. And if I had my own office, I'd be rocking that system. So love and appreciate you, brother. Have a great rest of your day and keep charging.
Thanks, guys.
We'll see you.
Thanks for listening to Chiro Hustle. Don't forget to subscribe and check back next week to continue hustling.